Welcome everyone, this is Tactical Lich here, and today we are looking at an intense and fast-paced game of Total Warhammer 2. Last week we saw the roadmap given by CA on the future of Total Warhammer 3, and we basically know that there won't be another major content update for the game for the next few months, so it makes more sense to come back to Total Warhammer 2 where the factions are a lot more diverse, the game is a lot more polished, and the rosters are a lot more complete. The only problem is that the latest update actually broke a bunch of my older save files, so I couldn't really cast a lot of my older games, but thankfully Strat Games here, playing as the Beastman, sent in this extremely close replay with the Brass Bull Taurox leading the army of Beastmen fighting against Morathi and her pets, the double manticore. Now for the army builds, we have a front line of Angor Herds mixed in with Angor Spears as well as Gore Herds with shields. Also one unit of Destroyers of Drakewold, the Poison Spear unit, Regiment of Renown. And on the flanks we have a bunch of Centaurs, one of them with great weapons. They're basically the same on the other side as well. At the back, for supporting elements, we have the Grog Hooves of Wolf's Run, the Throwing Axis Centaurs with poison and also regenerating properties. As for the leadership, we have also Brave Shaman of Wild coming in with, of course, the Traitorkin, extremely effective spell to kill off blobs of enemy, and then also we have the Brave Shaman of Death coming in with Spirit Leech. Also, as a Beastman, you always bring your staple unit, the Tuskor Chariot, armor-piercing anti-infantry, just really good against armored units, which Dark Elves have no shortage of. In the opposite side, we have the Dark Elves with a little bit of a box formation, front line of Dread Spears, and a couple Black Arc Corsairs on the second line, backed up by a bunch of Black Arc Corsairs with hand bows. In the middle, we have a single unit of Witch Elves providing that rampage effect. Then on the flank, we have one of the Dark Elves' most cost-effective units, a pair of Scourge Runner Chariots. Lastly, in the skies, we have Morathi and her favorite pets, the double manticores, and then a couple Kena assassins on the ground. And that's it for the army builds, let's get the show on the road. The best way to play Beastmen is rushing forward with your entire army, and that is exactly what Strat Games do, with a bunch of Angor Herds and Gore Herds charging straight for the front line of the Dark Elves, while the Dark Elves pushing up some of these Scourge Runners and start shooting up these Grog Hooves, trying to eliminate their model so that they can't utilize that regeneration benefit. And the rest of the Dark Elf army is just slowly pushing up some of the missile, hoping to shoot up a bunch of lightly armored Beastmen forces before they can approach the front line, but they need to be careful as the Gore Herds are charging straight for the front line, approaching closely, while a bunch of Tuskor Chariots are also closing in quickly with the Centaurs from the back enveloping this entire blob of Dark Elf infantry, and then the armor-piercing anti-infantry Tuskor Chariots ram straight through the infantry formations, doing massive damage to both the Black Arc Corsairs and the Dread Spears. The massive impact damage from all these high charge bonus units quickly led to a rout in this pocket of infantry, forcing Morathi and the double manticores to respawn, charging in, hoping to snipe out one of the Brave Shamans, but also putting themselves in the danger of being sniped out by the Beastman forces, especially Taurox dumpstering one of the Throw Manticore here. This is rather desperate for the Dark Elf squad, as the rest of the front line are in quite a bit of a mess, with all the Beastmen overwhelming their positions. With all these Centaurs charging in left, right, and center, thankfully one of the Witch Elves were able to rampage one of the Centaurs with great weapons, allowing the rest of the Black Arc Corsairs and the Dark Elf infantry to cut them down in combat. However, a second Throw Manticore got dumpstered by Taurox and the Brave Shaman as well, being pushed off, which leaves Morathi completely alone without any other units to support, surrounded by Centaurs and of course Taurox the Brass Bull. Morathi, mounted on a mere Dark Pegasus, does not have the mass to pull through a surround of all these large entities. Unable to escape back into the skies, taking massive damage in this engagement, forcing to dump in a bunch more of Soul Stealers to heal herself up and drain the health of surrounding Beastman units, while the missile units on the Dark Elf side were not able to utilize their firepower, as the Centaurs are still tying them down in combat, and the numbers of the Beastmen, the Drakewold's Destroyers, managed to tangle up a bunch of their firepower and silence the handbows. Now back to Morathi, she is still being wrecked by the Brass Bull, as the raging Taurox cares not for your enchanting beauty, leaving Morathi obliterated from the melee engagement. Now the assassin attempts to avenge their routed lord with the Web of Shadows. Really useful in basically weakening this entire blob fight of Beastman forces, helping the Dark Elves to turn around the tables. Still, Taurox is unstoppable in this combat, destroying the Manticore, leaving the corpse of this feral beast on the ground, while the second Manticore, realizing that he is alone against one of the most powerful single entity in the entire game, straight up nopes his way out of there, hoping to find a better engagement. While the handballs will be maneuvering around, shooting up the Brave Shaman of Death as the Manticore pursues, while the infantry blob of the Dark Elves still have quite a bit of fight left in them. Sure, the Witch Elves, due to their light armor, are being hacked down by the combination of Goreherds as well as the Destroyers, but the Dreadbeards are still fighting in different pockets, while the Black Ark Corsair is still very healthy, 83 kills right now. They should be able to clean up a bunch of the lightly armored infantry of the Beastmen, as the Ungor Spears and Ungor Herds are not exactly the greatest unit to deal with their heavy armor and the anti-infantry bonuses. Now, there's a bunch of Black Ark Corsairs over here kiting away at the Goreherds with shields, as their handballs will be chipping away the health of these already tattered infantry of the Beastmen. But the problem is, the two very expensive units, the Scourge Runner Chariots, are being pushed off to the edge of the map by a combination of Centaurs and the Grook Hooves of Wolf's Run, as their speed are not exactly the fastest, only 84 compared to the 93 on all these Beastmen units. Losing this race of speed, they actually got caught up and hacked down in combat, pushed off the battlefield, leaving only a single unit of Scourge Runner with 2 models behind. The good news for the Dark Elves is that there's only one Taurox right here, and he's being shot up by the combination of 2 Canine Assassins. He can go and chase after one Canine Assassin, but that leaves him vulnerable to the shots from the other one, and with this kind of back and forth ping-ponging, sure, Taurox managed to shut down one of the Canine Assassins, but he also took some massive damage, despite having Brass Body mitigating that missile damage. And the Canine Assassins will be continuing his kite, but not for long, as there's no more mobility or infantry to tie down the Brass Bull, forcing the engagement with a mass advantage and the speed catching up with the Canine Assassins. But right now, with the Manticore coming back, Taurox is actually under the threat of being surrounded and beat up by single entities, and Strat Games wisely pulled back Taurox into the safety of his own infantry. And finally, with all these mobility returning from chasing after routing units and whatnot, the final showdown has begun, with all these Centaurs charging straight for this blob fight. Taurox dumpstering the Canine Assassins. He took some major damage in the engagement, dropping down really low with the charging from the Feral Manticore and Morathi, but the Feral Manticore rampaged, lost control, allowing Taurox to charge his back and quickly rout and shatter the unit, while leaving Morathi alone in this blob. And at this point, the Dark Elf units have no way to pull back the game. Army losses is hit, and victory belongs to the Beastman army. Big thanks to Strat Games for sending in this replay, and GG to both players for showcasing us an amazing battle. With AC Moore and Strat Games here having a rather close fight, Strat Games' Taurox was barely alive, pulling out a victory for the Beastman army. If Morathi and the remaining Manticore of the Dark Elf army was able to snipe him out a little earlier, than with the Soul Stealer and the monstrous Psycho charging terror effect routing the Beastman infantry, the tattered ones especially, then Strat Games might actually have lost this battle. Although Strat Games does have a regiment of renowned reserve of these Centaurs with throwing axes, providing a bit more staying power and damage dealers to the late game situation. While the remaining infantry were extremely tattered, you can see that the Goreherds and the Ungors are barely alive. And when you look at the Blackhorn's Ravagers, the regiment of renowned Goreherds with shields, I totally missed them in the army composition. They actually earned back quite a bit of value and almost fought to their last men. As for the Centaurs, some of these great weapons did some great damage, surrounding a bunch of Feral Manticore and also running down some of these more expensive handbow Black Ark Corsairs, while the Centaurs, the regular ones, were able to chase off these very expensive Scourge Runners, absorbing all their expensive ammo, and in that regard earned back quite a bit of value as well, as every shot wasted on the Centaurs is one less shot going into Taurox. And with Taurox only having a few hundred extra HP left, these shots that did not go into Taurox was extremely crucial in winning the game. As you can see here, Taurox did 2,500 gold worth of damage, a major damage dealer, and honestly, one of the best melee beasts in this whole game. While the Brave Shamans, the Brave Shaman of Death got sniped out early by the Manticore Goon squad, while the Brave Shaman of Wild did some nice damage with the Chariot as well as probably Traitorkin, but I totally missed the cast of the wild magic there, so I can't really say for sure what he actually did. Now for the Dark Elf army here with the Assassins, you can see their damage dealing power with their missiles ping-ponging around Taurox the Brass Bull is just really effective in dealing with single entities, 1000 gold worth of damage each, and then Web of Shadows, draining the health of all these blobbed up Beastmen infantry and routing them in the end. As for the infantry, the rather fragile Dread Spears and also one of the Black Aquasars got crumped by a combination of a bunch of Goreherds, Ungors, and of course a spam of Tuskor Chariots overloading one flank, and afterwards being swarmed by the Ungoreherds and Goreherds. These Dark Elf melee units did not have the best time, while the Witch Elves only able to drag down one of the Centaur's units. Not exactly the best use, as their light armor makes them rather fragile to all these Ungor units. And the Handballs, they were silenced, tangled up by all these swarms of Beastmen infantry, unable to use up their ammo. Same goes for the Scourge Runner Chariots, being occupied by a bunch of Centaurs. They were able to do some damage, but most of their shots went into the Centaurs, not exactly getting the greatest value as they should have been shooting at Taurox the Brass Bull instead. While the Manticores, well, they got wrecked by Taurox in combat, so not much to say about them. Morathi though, doing some decent damage with the Soul Stealer spam and being a decent combatant herself. Still, not able to carry the game, with Taurox basically soloing the entire Morathi Goon squad. Anyways, that is it for today's battle. I hope you enjoy it. If you do and want to see more, remember to hit the like and subscribe to get notified, stay up to date for any new content, new uploads to the channel. I'll be showcasing more battle replays, sometimes wild army builds, and of course occasional tips and strategies for Total War Warhammer multiplayer. And if you want to showcase your own battles, feel free to drop by my Discord or send me an email with the replay file attached. I'll be sure to check them out. And yeah, that's basically it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Manticores, signing out.